Season 1 of The Wheel of Time is a decisive piece of television to say the least. To say the most, it's a mixed bag of questionable creative choices with occasional moments of book referencing brilliance. Like all adaptations, it was faithful to the source material in places, sometimes to a fault, and gave us a multitude of changes, some that had us cheering, some that had us scratching our heads, and some that had book fans sharpening their pitchforks. Character relationships were developed, sometimes for the better, sometimes not so much. It expanded on the lore of the world whilst simultaneously butchering the magic system, and introduced new characters who get more on-screen attention than members of the main cast. But don't worry, because I'm sure there's a reason we're spending so much time with Steppin. Oh no. Adapting such a beloved book series into a TV show is incredibly difficult, and I don't envy the daunting task given to the creative team. Just kidding, I would literally give my left eye for a seat in the writer's room. Hence this video. So here are 5 changes I would have made if I'd been sitting in the showrunner's chair. I'd like to preface this video by saying it is a lot easier to pick a pattern apart than it is to weave one. Get it? It demands far less effort to watch a finished TV show and say how it could have been better than to come up with a story from scratch. So no disrespect to Rafe and the creative team intended. For this video, I will also not be including any easy answers like more episodes. We all know more episodes would have made the show better, but this video is about the creative choices that will help us make the most out of the limited time given to us. It would also be boring to insist the show rigidly stick to the books, so we're not touching the brakes when it comes to changes. If your main complaint was that season 1 of The Wheel of Time wasn't faithful enough, then this video probably isn't for you. Number 1. Too much exposition too quickly. Let's face it, there is an ocean of exposition that needs to be covered when talking about The Wheel of Time, but sometimes a trickle can be more satisfying than being plunged in head first. Moraine's opening monologue and the cold open bombard the audience with information. We get the history of the dragon and the breaking of the world, Moraine's quest to find the dragon reborn, the taint on Sidene and its maddening effect on men who can channel, and the purpose of the male hunting Red Ajah. Even just that paragraph alone is a lot. Imagine if Game of Thrones had started with a voiceover telling the audience all about the Mad King and Robert's Rebellion. Suddenly, all those great scenes that fed us snippets of the history would be made redundant, and those were some of the best scenes. I think the creative team here confused intrigue with information. Answers are only satisfying if you've encouraged the audience to ask questions first. Force-fed exposition just doesn't taste the same. By the end of episode 1, the only question left is who is the Dragon Reborn? Oh, and to make it easier for the audience, it's multiple choice. I think the show should go back several steps and have viewers asking, what is the Dragon Reborn? So Moraine's monologue is gone, and I'd swap the cold open with Liandrin for a scene similar to the introduction to Swan Sanche. Instead of a girl, imagine if it was a young boy whose family had discovered he could channel. Suddenly you get an opportunity for a much darker introduction to the world. Picture a young dark-haired boy overhearing his parents discussing what to do. The mother begging the father not to hurt their son, the father insisting that it would be a mercy. Would you rather the White Cloaks come and put us and the whole village to the question? Or hand him over to the Red Ajah? He'd have wished for a quick death then. Now the audience is wondering what's so terrible about magic in this world that parents would even consider harming their own child. Who are the White Cloaks and Red Ajah, and why are they so feared? You watching this might be wondering why I specified the colour of the boy's hair. Well, we'll get to that later on. See how it works? I also think Moraine being revealed as an Aes Sedai should happen during the Battle of Winternight. Non-book readers were robbed of how electrifying that revelation could have been. Get it? Another total waste of dramatic potential is Moraine telling the villagers that one of them is the Dragon Reborn up front. Explaining that the Dark One is after them should be enough justification for their sudden departure. Plus, having Moraine know something the villagers and the audience don't, and having that information teased out to us slowly through private conversations with Lan is exactly how it should be done. Not to mention Rand overhearing a snippet from one of these conversations would make his distrustful outbursts seem justified and not bratty. Number 2. Don't age up the characters. This statement isn't exactly accurate. I personally don't care how old the characters are. What I do care about is how much life experience they've had. The Wheel of Time has incredible world building, an extremely well thought out magic system, and epic battles that prove a challenge to even the most imaginative reader in terms of picturing the sheer levels of destruction being described on the page. But all that considered, the series never loses sight of also being a compelling coming-of-age story for its main characters. This element provides a relatable heart to the story and a doorway for the reader to enter this new magical world. Doesn't matter if you were born in Berkshire or the Two Rivers, your first kiss is always going to be embarrassing. So my question is, why skip all that awkward adolescent fun in the TV show? When I first found out the characters were going to be aged up for the TV series, I didn't really have a problem with it, but after watching season 1, I really don't feel like it added anything. The drama between Egwene and Rand breaking up was annoyingly repetitive. It was pretty much solved halfway through episode 1 when Rand respectfully accepts Egwene's decision to become a wisdom, probably because the writers wanted us to like his character, but then the writers remembered that his character also needs an arc. So both start being indecisive, and in the end Rand realises that Egwene doesn't want the simple life he'd hoped they'd have together. Except he'd already come to terms with that 8 episodes earlier, but ah well. I think this arc could have worked if the show hadn't accelerated their relationship so quickly, and instead focused on how these sheltered young adults being forced from their comfy country lives into the big wide world makes them question their initial hopes and dreams. And don't get me started on Perrin being married, because that contributes nothing but fridging complaints in the comment sections. In short, aging up the characters means that the igloo scene is just not going to be the same in the show, and I'm prepared to forgive a lot, but that's just cold. Get it? Number 3. Cut Steppin. In fairness, I can totally understand the ideas around Steppin's inclusion in the story. It's not a badly written subplot, the performances from the actors involved are great, it delivers important exposition about the Water Bond, and even our first mention of the Forsaken. In a show that had minutes to burn, this storyline would have been a welcome addition. Unfortunately, this is an adaptation where every single second is precious, and you can't justify spending so long with a character that's doomed to die when main protagonists like Perrin feel hugely underdeveloped. I know a couple of non-book readers who quit watching the show after episode 5 because they felt cheated by the ending. Number 4. Give the audience the clues up front. For season 1, the creative team clearly wanted #WhoIsTheDragonReborn trending all over the internet. Unfortunately, I think this focus on creating a mystery was done to the detriment of the story. When Rand discovers he's the Dragon Reborn, we get a little montage of flashbacks to all the clues pointing towards this conclusion. But the thing is, this is the first time we're seeing half of these scenes. This is not a satisfying way to conclude a mystery, because it feels as if the audience was never supposed to be able to solve it, as key information was purposefully kept from them. To use Game of Thrones as an example again, when Stannis is defeated at the Blackwater by a combined Lannister and Tyrell force, you could see this as being a bit of a Deus Ex Machina. If it weren't for this scene between Marjorie, Loras and Littlefinger that foreshadows the alliance between the two houses. And it's not slap you in the face obvious with the Master of Coin directly asking if they want to team up, it's just subtle enough for us to forget about until the battle-changing twist at the end. With all that in mind, the audience should have been made aware of Tam's feverish ramblings about a baby in the snow before the final reveal. You could argue that this tips the scales disproportionately in favour of Rand being the chosen one, but it's not like the books are subtle about the dragon's identity either. And to use Game of Thrones as a bad example, we've all seen what happens when showrunners needlessly try to subvert expectations. And now the big one, number 5. Logain should have been the main villain for season 1. Here's where we go into massive book deviation territory. And whilst planning this video, I sort of ended up writing an entire story treatment for the final half of the season. So we're going to be taking a little break here, and in part 2, I'll explain why and how I think Logain would have worked better as the main antagonist for season 1. So hopefully, see you guys in the next one.